Well, hello one all, and welcome back to the Pepper Brain Podcast. And today we're going to talk about another podcast because one of the PHL superstars did an interview on it very, very recently. So it was called the A Touch More with Megan and Sue, and unfortunately, I think we all know how that's gone down. Awkward. This is why you do not do things like this with your partners or your relatives, okay? Because eventually it just messes up with the relationship and it all then goes downhill. Okay? Shag, Mine and Oi with Chris and Rosie, that's the only exception. But 9 out of the time you do something with a partner or a relative, it just does not end well. Anyway, okay, so this episode, if I remember rightly, I'm just going to double check it, actually. I'm just going to double check it real quick. There will be a link to it in the episode description, by the way, so you have already watched it, you can go check it out for yourselves. Okay. I'll give you the timestamp now, actually. Okay, because it was basically one of their regular episodes. And then she gets interviewed halfway through it. Okay, so yeah. Yeah, so this episode was released as we were flying back from Minneapolis. This episode got released on the 19th of March, and of course we would have been in midair, because obviously we were flying back home from Minneapolis on that day. So Hilllary Knight gets interviewed, and it's at the 30-minute mark, so it's halfway through. The episode's about an hour and 15, and it's the halfway mark, so it's at 30 minutes in. That's when Hilllary comes in. So if you're not really interested in the first part, just skip to 30 minutes, and that's when Hilllary then comes in. When I watched it, I hadn't, because I think I watched it a few weeks after we'd gotten back. I can't remember exactly. I feel after we got, maybe a few days or weeks after we got back from the trip. Now, I, at the time, had no idea what it was. I thought it was basically like a women's sports podcast where they basically get various different women's athletes on from various different areas of women's sports. But actually, it was more centered towards the WNBA and also soccer, so not my expertises. But I still kind of on, watching a future episodes after that, and obviously since those two split, I've stopped, because obviously the show's no longer really about them anymore, and they basically stopped doing it. So Hilllary was on, and I thought this was a really good interview. They covered a lot of stuff on, so basically put Jimmy Fallon in his place. Look, Jimmy, this is how you interview a GOAT of women's hockey. Okay? This is how you do it. By the way, if you want to hear my thoughts about that Jimmy Fallon interview, you can go back and watch that episode that we did on it back not long after that interview had happened. But yeah, so I thought it was really, it covered a lot of stuff. Covered obviously, the recent Olympics that she's been a part of, which is supposed to be a far one, but you listen to that, you think, she's like, no, she's thinking about it. Harry, no, we can't go through that again. Because we basically spent this Olympic cycle feeling like this is going to be her last one. Now she's maybe like, no, we can't go through that again. We cannot. It covered that. It also covered how she got engaged to her fiance. That was quite a story. And it has also been covered on, obviously, Jocks and Jills. Because obviously, Taya Heisey also got asked about it when she got interviewed about the Olympics on Jocks and Jills, and it was quite a story. So you can go check that out as well. That was back when we got our little mention. Mm-hmm. And they also briefly covered on the big the furore that obviously resulted from the men's locker room and all that. And I do love how she handled that subject really well. And that's so yeah. So I honestly felt this is like a really good interview. Even though it was on a podcast where you can sort of, be light-hearted, you can kind of ask those questions that you wouldn't get away with asking if you were going on the mainstream media. So say if you were going on, say, for example, This Morning, you wouldn't be able to get Dermot Allison to ask her some light-hearted questions that you would get to be asked on a podcast. Because obviously, This Morning, everyone, it's mainstream media, everyone watches it. You kind of need to stick to television guidelines and all that. Whereas the podcast, you can kind of push the envelope a bit. You can kind of get away with asking like a rogue question where you wouldn't get asked on the telly. So even though this was being done on a podcast, and she was being on a podcast, it felt like a serious interview that I would see if she had gone on This Morning, for example. Right, I'll just quickly explain it for you guys, because I know I have mentioned our daytime telly programs quite a bit. This Morning is a program that runs every weekday from I think it's about 10 to 12:30. I get so confused with our daytime timings these days. I really do. But I think This Morning is from 10 to 12:30. I think it is. And Dermot Allison do the Friday shows. I should have mentioned the main presenters, but I thought, nope. Dermot Allison's name came to my head first. So, bam-bam! Bam-bam! Okay? So, yeah. So, This Morning, and basically you get to have, it's basically light-hearted stuff, and they do get guests on from all walks of life to come on every now and then and do interviews. So, there you go. So, yeah, so even though that's what really took me by surprise was how serious this was. And let me just double check the length. I think it was a good half an hour the interview. Yeah, it's like a good like yeah, like it was literally like a half an hour interview, and we got a lot covered in it, and it was very serious, which I thought was really interesting. Um, I would have thought maybe, Mega might try to throw some like questions every now and then, like some fun stuff, just like break it down a bit. But no, it was really good, really good. But again, you got Megan and Sue are athletes in their respective fields, so they kind of know the right questions to ask. Whereas me, as I am a fan and an advocate, I would probably want to try and throw in some fans questions every now and then, which probably then would be like questions that you probably could not get away with doing on the telly. But yeah, but I really did loved it. It was great to get Harry on. I feel like every time a PHL player gets mentioned elsewhere, I kind of feel like I want to A, check it out, and then B, bring it on to the podcast. So like obviously when Hayes Gamora went on Kelly Clarkson, Pluto was adamant that we come and do an episode on that. That's what I want to see more of around the league. So various players get to go on these types of shows. Even say they go like say to like their local news station, that would probably well cover that as well. Because any opportunity we can get for our players to go on the media circuit and just talk about the league, but also the women's game as a whole, the better chances we're going to have people who may not have checked us out yet come and give us a go. Okay? Because the beauty of having the PHL now, and I think, and Harry did touch on this, the beauty of having the PHL is that now you don't have to wait every 4 years for your next fix of women's hockey. And Harry touched on this quite brilliantly. It kind of did remind me about how my journey obviously began with the women's game. Because obviously, I did not know that there was a World Championships for women until I got involved with the PHL 3 years ago. Okay, I didn't know that. So before that, the only time I could watch the women's game was once every 4 years. And here we touched about how for a lot of people, you get this buzz at the Olympics, and then it kind of dies down again because you've got no idea where you can go and find it in non-Olympic years. It kind of gets excitement and a buzz, and lots of many people watching it, and the ratings go up when you're watching it. But then after that, the buzz kind of then dies down because nobody really knows where you can then go find it again. Because obviously back then there was no pro league for the women's game. Obviously now that course changed with the PHL, because once you've done the Olympics, you can then go straight back into actual league play, and we did, because literally it was like 4 days after the close ceremony, we got straight back into it. The close ceremony was on the Sunday, which of course Hilllary Knight was one of the flag bearers for. I don't think they touched on that, did they? I don't think because if it was me, I would want to ask her what was it like actually, carrying the flag for your country. Yeah, so we had the close ceremony on the Sunday, which of course Hilllary Knight was one of the flag bearers for. And then on the Thursday, we were straight back in to PHL action. I think Seattle was actually the Friday. So if I remember right, of the Thursday it was Montreal, New York. Then the Friday it was Seattle hosting Toronto. That of course was that big attendance number where literally it was standing room only. Then the Saturday was, I think it was Ottawa, Boston. That I think was when we got SNL. And then by that point I was like, right, I'm gonna have to talk about this myself, aren't I? That was when I basically settled on do we not talk about the distasteful joke and all that, because that. And then on Sunday, we were back in action. The Frost were back in action in Montreal, and then Toronto, Vancouver also got underway as TO kicked off the Golden Eyes' very important homestand that they had coming out of the Olympic break, which ultimately ended in disaster and probably killed the Golden Eyes' chances of playoffs. Just saying. Yeah. I don't think I would have touched on the joke again. I really wouldn't. I mean, I know, because she's already had to deal with that. Because obviously, I remember, when it was a live story. I remember on one of the days there was the View covered a clip of her talking about it. So for me, I thought, well, that's already been done. We don't need to cover that again. But yeah. That was a really not a nice time. That was not a nice week, because we all us three kept basically and I should we not cover it. Plus, they wanted to do it. I did not want to cover it. And the midway point of the week, emotions then ran high, and then by the end of the week, when we had obviously the SNL thing, I thought, right, you know what? I'm gonna have to do it. I'm gonna have to pull him on it. I'm gonna have to do it. Yeah. So I probably, if I was doing the interview, I probably would not have touched on the whole distasteful joke thing, because that's already been and done. That's already been covered. We don't need to go through that again. Okay. I personally, when it comes to the distasteful joke, I basically just like to put that in a box and never touch it ever again. Okay. and just wait for the next Raw to tackle that, and so forth and on, and so forth and on. Anyway, oh yeah, that was not a nice week. That was not a nice week for our sport. Yeah. In fact, if I was her, I would have basically dodged that question altogether. But you know, here he took it in a stride as a pro and did answer it in the interview. Yeah. So I also think it's quite like how they touched about, you know, her getting engaged to Beyonce. That was a nice little personal touch. We don't really know, because we don't really get to find out much about athletes' personal lives, and rightly so. So this is kind of nice to, you know, go behind the curtain and, you know, learn a bit more about Harry's personal life. Yeah. Although I thought it was a really great interview, and maybe this should have been something that was done on national telly, because it didn't feel like. Because I think in past, whenever I've seen interviews on podcasts, they've normally been kind of, you know, like light-hearted. They've kind of been like, you know, sort of laid back. You do have the host basically, you know, every now and then throw in a question which is kind of like light-hearted, like kind of jokey, that you wouldn't get away if you were literally being asked like this in a serious interview for the telly. It's okay. That's what I've seen from various interviews on other podcast platforms. But this one felt completely different, because this one felt like it's a more serious tone. You know, we've got this huge superstar of our hockey coming on the show. We need to do her justice. We need to do right by her. So it was a really good episode, and I thought it was a really great interview as a whole. Yeah. So I think we need to see more of that. I'd love to see more PHL players go on various different podcasts and basically just let the door be opened, and we get to learn more about them. Obviously, Dr. Dawes is the best place to do that, but how many people? Right, I've got a question for you guys. How many people who aren't involved in PHL know Jocks and Jills and checked out Jocks and Jills? Okay, because that is probably the best place to go and find out more, to learn more about the various different players' lives and their stories, because they have some great interviews on that. But how many people who aren't involved in the league? How many of you have checked that out? So I'm willing to bet not many of you. So if we can get these players on other sporting podcasts as well, then that's going to get people pricking up and going, oh, what is this? I've never heard of PHL before. And that will get them thinking, right, maybe I need to go and check this out. Because guess what, guys? You do. Take it from this day one support on advocate. You really do. You really do. You need to go and check it out. You really do. So yeah. So by hearing going on this podcast, which isn't Tape of Hockey, more people are going to be aware of who she is. They're going to know more about the PHL. They're going to be thinking, well, maybe I should go check it out. So there you go. So we're about to try and work out how can we get people outside of our league more aware of who we are, what we do, and how they get involved. That is what we need to do. That is what we need to focus on more. As we just keep growing beyond our wildest years. So there you go. That is what we need to focus on more. Yeah, but it was a really good interview. Yeah, so like I said, it was about half an hour long. I found it really fascinating. I thought it was a really good insight to Hillary and her life. So yeah, that was really good. And of course, obviously, she was injured at the time, so she wasn't playing with the Torrent. So yeah, I was surprised they didn't ask about the Oscars, because obviously, of course, both Hillary Knight and Hannah Bilker, so two members of the Torrent at the time, were both on the red carpet for the Oscars. And I remember at the time seeing that photo, I immediately thought, no, that's not real, isn't it? That's not real. Because initially, the way I saw it on the socials was somebody posted it, and it got put on my time, and I thought, because it's not from all the leagues verified colour sport, no, that's not real. That's not real. And then the Torrent later on posted it, so I thought, oh my god, we had PHL representation at the Oscars. Oh my fucking god! So yeah, yeah. So if I was doing the interview straight away, I would have wanted to ask, what was it like at the Oscars? Because I bet you it's not going to be every day we're going to get PSL players at award ceremonies like that. No way. No chance. No chance. I mean, could you imagine if we managed to get them for the NTAs over here? That would be a steal. That would be a huge steal. Anyways, no, it was a really great experience. It was really good to watch that again and get to cover it. I will obviously leave a link in this episode description so you can go and check it out yourselves. It's about half an hour long. It's at the 30-minute mark, so if you don't want to check out the first part, which is what the hosts generally talk about, just skip 30 minutes in, and then it's at the 30-minute mark. That's when Harry's interview happens, and it's basically the second half of that show. Okay. But we're going to wrap up there today. So thank you for joining me as always, guys. Until next time, take care. Don't forget to build the free.